Hi everyone. It's late here, but I just have something on my mind, and I'm sure that some of you are going through the same thing. So I thought I would express what I'm feeling or experiencing. So in this kind of lull that we have, in terms of the drama that's playing out on the world stage, I've taken a little time to kind of reflect, and not really by choice. My mom sent me some photos of when I was a child, and when I went to her house, she had the photo album open, so I saw these pictures from when I was like 8 years old, and I was like, 7 years old, and it reminded me of a, nicer time, an innocent time, and a time where I didn't have any concerns about anything at all. I was just playing with my sister and having fun and spending time with my family. And then, so it kind of lately I've been reflecting on my life, and I just watched Back to the Future, which was one of my favorite movies. My sister and I love that movie. And all I could think of was Michael J. Fox as a girl. And it's ruined my childhood memories. So, anyway, I guess what's happening right now is I'm kind of going back down memory lane, and it's a very strange feeling to be kind of straddling two worlds. And I've talked about this before, when you realize the truth, you live in a kind of different world than everybody else, and different from when you used to live in the quote-unquote real world, or the artificial world, the fake world, the world of materialism and superficiality. So I started thinking back on my life, and my friend sent me some photos from her wedding, and so it's kind of been reminiscent time, and so I started thinking about my life and where I've been and what I've done, and where I thought I would be. And when you're younger, they tell you, they ask you, well, where do you expect to see yourself in 5 years, 10 years? What's your plan? What career do you want? Where are you going to go? What are you going to do with your life? And I never expected that I would be here, ever. I mean, hang on. That's better. I was always somebody who was goal-oriented, career-oriented. I always wanted to accomplish something, something great. I wanted to do so many things. Like, I traveled a lot. I was really good at my job. I was very creative. I was very detail-oriented. I was a smart cookie. But, I had this nagging issue, this need for more, and this idea that there has to be more to life, and, this sort of strong pull that was preventing me from participating in, the materialistic world the way that I was told I was supposed to. And, it's very difficult looking back and saying, well, this is what I wanted for myself. And every so often, you sort of get pulled back into that. You get pulled back into the memory of what you thought life was going to be. And you get pulled into it and you think, well, you know, I'm not any of those things. And you know, you kind of have to mourn the death of that life all over again. Every time you remember it, every time you look at it, you're not that person anymore. It's not your world anymore. And I look back on, you know, some of the people who were in my life and, you know, what might have been if I had, you know, stayed with this certain person or, you know, married this guy or, you know, built a life with this person. And there's no way, there's absolutely no way that, I don't think there's any way that I would have avoided the truth, being the person that I am, having this strong pull toward it, because it was everything that I was. Even when I was trying to, you know, build freaking empires, I was trying to start companies and businesses and websites and, you know, like, oh, there's all sorts of things that I had that I was trying to accomplish. And I actually did do those things, but they didn't work out because, you know, multiple reasons. Because the way that the matrix works, the system works, the way it's structured and set up, and also the way that I'm designed, the way that I am. And so, you know, being here, being where I am now, I'm grateful that it didn't work out. I understand why. I understand the significance of it. And then I look, you know, and think about, well, say I had married some guy and there's no way, looking at his life and where he is and what he's doing, although I think that, you know, given the way his mind works and the way that, you know, his world is all about computers and all about, you know, his favorite movie was The Matrix. I mean, how ironic is that? But he's so ingrained in the system, I don't know if he would have seen it. And regardless of whatever I had done, if whatever, you know, if things had worked out, that would have torn us apart. There's no way that anything that I could have done or anything that anybody else could have done would have kept me from the truth. They would have found me eventually. But the only way that would have happened, and the only way that it has happened for a lot of us, is because we had some kind of breakthrough or breakdown, or, you know, lost everything, or we were sick, or, you know, had a period of what the hell? Like, what is this place? So you have to go through that, and that's why, you know, a lot of people who have a lot of money and a lot of success in the material world aren't going to see it. They're just not. Because they're all caught up in making money. They're all caught up in the money. And you cannot see truth if you're caught up in money. It is the complete opposite of truth. So, anyway, looking back on my life and what I thought it was supposed to be, and you know, if I sort of set aside the truth and set aside where I am now, and you know, where would I be if I hadn't found it, and if I had followed this path or that path? And it's probably a stupid, pointless exercise, but you know, just the idea of it, the idea of what my life now looks like from that perspective. If I had been that person instead of the person that I am now, if I had been there instead of here, and what my life would look like to me or to anybody who knows me or knew me then and looks at my life now. They wouldn't understand it. I wouldn't understand it without knowing the truth. So, it's understandable why my family or people who knew me growing up and know who I am look at my life and they're like, what the fuck? I don't understand it. Like, you had this great career, you had a home, you had all of the things that you possibly could want, and you threw it all away. And I don't get it. I don't understand it. And I don't understand it. So I know this is where I'm supposed to be, but sometimes I just don't understand it. Because I don't really understand this place. I don't understand what the fuck. Like, I don't get it. Even with all my knowledge about what this place is and why we're here. Like, I understand some of it. But still, what the fuck? What is this place? I just... It's very strange to look at your life this way, to look at your life from this perspective looking back, and from that perspective looking here. It's almost like you're in two separate worlds. It's almost like, it's like you died, and yet you can still see your life. It gets so weird. It's just so... I don't even know how to explain it, but it is kind of like you died. And, I'm not articulating this well because there are no words for it. But the distance between that life and this life, it's completely... It goes worlds away. And it's kind of painful in a sense. It's painful to look back. It's painful to consider what might have been. It's painful to I don't really like to look back on my life anymore. And I used to like it. I used to know what I was doing because I've kept a journal most of my life. I used to know what I was doing at, certain year or certain month. And I used to have incredible memory of pretty much everything until truth. And now I kind of just live in the moment more, and I kind of don't care. It's a weird feeling. I kind of don't care about the past. I don't really care about the future that much. Like, is there a future? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where we're headed. And I just sort of feel a little bit cut off. Sometimes, especially with this lockdown, I kind of feel cut off, a little bit isolated, which is good in some ways, but kind of weird. So yeah, I kind of feel like people who wouldn't get it, people who, the typical kind of like high school reunion type of thing where you meet someone you went to school with and they say, oh, have you heard anything about Suzy? And they say, oh, yeah, well, I heard she got divorced and she quit her job and she's kind of roaming around the world, backpacking, hasn't had a job in about 20 years. I don't really understand it myself, but, she was quite successful for some time, had a family and a husband, and she just up and left one day. Well, that's weird. Yeah, nobody really understands it. Nobody's really heard from her for, 5 years, but she's been doing that for 20 years or whatever. You just sort of make judgments on people's lives because you're trying to fill in the gap. You're trying to understand it. You're trying to justify it to yourself. You got to justify it to yourself. It's like, well, from the perspective of the old paradigm of what life is supposed to be, you're supposed to have a career. You're supposed to be very successful at it. You're supposed to buy a house. You're supposed to invest. You're supposed to have a family and get married and have children and, travel and enjoy the superficial materialistic life. And anybody who does the opposite is crazy. There's something wrong with you. And, here I am, the complete opposite. Never, ever did I think that I would be doing this. I mean, yeah, the question, like, when you're a child, like, well, what career do you want? And when I was in I think it was grade 7, they tried to tell us that we had to pick a career. And they gave us this book, the list of careers in it, and said, here are your options. And they had a bunch of people come in to talk to us about their careers. They all bored me. I wasn't interested in any of them. They seemed so cliche. And all the options in the book seemed so boring, didn't seem to suit me. I thought, there's got to be more than this. Why are these the only options? Why are you telling me that these are the only jobs I can have? And I didn't know what kind of job I wanted, and I didn't want any of the ones they told me I could have. But you're supposed to pick something. So I'm like, well, I don't know. I like the idea of traveling. But, like, what does a 13-year-old know about what they want for the rest of their life? They don't. I mean, it's kind of absurd to tell a 13-year-old you got to pick your career. So yeah, I didn't like the options, and then, that really disturbed me. It disturbed me then. And I spoke out openly about it to people. I'm like, I can't believe these are the only options. I mean, what are we supposed to do? Just be a teacher or a doctor or a lawyer? Like, there's got to be more. Or a flight attendant. I think that was, like, the main options. So yeah, then they tell us you're supposed to pick a career path. You're supposed to know what you want. You're supposed to pick your classes so that it fits your career path. And then you're supposed to pick your major for university or college or what have you. And even in university, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had interests, but, it just all seemed so pointless and boring to me. So yeah, anyway, I always imagined myself being incredibly successful, incredibly, driven. But, I found out the truth of this place, and I was like, career's a trap. It's a freaking trap. They just want us spinning our wheels, expending our energy, chasing after a carrot that you never catch. Ever. And so, you get to the point where you're just like, okay, so I've just wasted all of this time and all of this money chasing dead ends, chasing career after career after career. And basically, the most valuable thing I got out of it was self-improvement. That's really it. And for the most part, everything that I have done to this point has trained me for this, trained me for truth. And, the irony is that this doesn't pay a penny. This isn't this isn't something that you put on a resume. This isn't something you can have. You can have a career in it. You can. But it's like, it's just so absurd to me that this is what life turned out to be. So sometimes I get comments from people, lately anyway, just a couple of people, have said, well, life is wonderful. How dare you say that it's, this horrible place to live? And I'm like, have you opened your eyes? Do you see what's going on? How can you say that? Yes, it's a matter of perspective. I agree. I do. But you do have to face reality. And, the sort of new age attitude that you can ignore all the negative and just look at the positive. Just, turn everything into positive. And all the negative will go away. Well, you do have to face reality and you have to deal with reality, but you'll need to deal with your reality, your immediate experience. And yeah, sometimes there are things that aren't so great you got to deal with, but just focusing on the positive and thinking that it's going to go away is not realistic. But having said that, it has happened to me. And I think too, the other thing that has come out of this experience that is quite wonderful is that I have learned how the universe works and how the mind works and, all of those things. But also, so when I was working at the chamber, I learned how to sort of create my reality, so to speak. Every day I went into work, I would talk to myself in the car and talk to myself about the place that I worked and what it was like to work there, and create the environment that I wanted to work in, because I hated my job. I worked for a narcissist, and she was just absolutely a pain in the ass to work for. She didn't do anything. She took credit for everything. She would yell at you. She would, abuse you. She was just a nasty piece of work. And then one day I got in a fight with her and told her no, and all hell broke loose. And if you tell a narcissist no, all hell breaks loose. Didn't know that then. I didn't know that she was a narcissist, and I didn't know that if you tell a narcissist no, that all hell breaks loose. But I did, and that happened, and I went to a parking lot. I left the office, and I went to a parking lot and screamed. And I was tempted to quit. I was tempted not to go back. And then I got this idea that, well, I could use this as an experiment to see what I can do and see what I'm capable of. So that's what I did. And I'm glad I did that, because I realized that I have tremendous power. And I turned it around. And I said I was going to be the best person who's ever worked there, that's ever worked for her. That she's going to love me so much she won't want to let me go. And I was only doing the job as a maternity cover. So I focused intensely on the things that I like to do. And I said all of the things that I don't like to do are just going to magically go away and get done by somebody else. And they did. So every day I went into work, I talked to myself and I said, I prepared the script for what was going to happen that day. I talked about how I'm going to walk in and there's going to be people talking about TV shows and screenplays, because back then I still wanted to work in film and television as a screenwriter. Pardon me. And so I pretended that I worked at a film studio. And, I would walk in and we would talk about film and TV, we'd talk about scripts, we'd talk about characters, we would, talk about production, etc., etc. And lo and behold, I would go in and we had those conversations. And I was astounded. I was absolutely astounded. And all of the things that I didn't want to do, magically somebody else picked up the responsibility to do those things. And I was like, oh, okay, so it's working. So I kept focused on that, and I did that every single day. Every single day I went into work and I talked to myself about what was going to happen that day. And at the end of the time that I was working there, I started to like my job because I had made it the way that I wanted it to be. I only did things that I wanted to do. And all the things I didn't want to do went away. Somebody else did them. And my boss loved me. I made that happen too. Everybody loved me. The clients loved me. The office work loved me. Everybody loved me. And I won an award. So, it couldn't have gone any better by the end of the time I was there. So, in that experience, I realized my true power. And I didn't work at a film studio, but I created the environment to make it feel like I did. And that was just as satisfying. So, it's kind of a strange reality that we live in. And so, yeah, I don't have the life that I thought I would. And at this stage, with what I know about this place, there's no... I don't even know what I thought I would have. But there's no need to have all that stuff. But, I just kind of lament that life. I don't know why it's important. I don't know why it matters. I don't know why. I guess it's just a process that we have to go through. There's a process of mourning because this path is so lonely. And, I guess you get caught up in the present moment. You get caught up in truth, research, where things are headed, all the drama, and you kind of forget. You forget that you had a different life. And then somebody brings it up and you're just like, oh, yeah, life used to be so different. And it was all a big delusion. It was all a big illusion. It was all fake. And I don't like to think about that part of my life because it was all fake. It wasn't fake for me at the time, but it's painful to think back about it or back on it because it was fake. Because we were chasing fake things. We built our whole lives on fake. Everything. All your relationships, all the way you approach life, the things that you talked about, the things that you focused on, the reason you did anything, the careers, the you know, just the way you spent your time, all of it. So yeah, I don't really like to think about it that much. And then, you know, if you run into somebody from the past who's just like, hey, well, what are you up to now? Nothing. You just try to be vague. Try not to tell them anything. You know, sort of downplay it. Because it just doesn't, there's no point in explaining why your life is the way that it is to somebody who doesn't understand truth. So yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I'm a little bit nostalgic and a little bit in a time warp, I guess, because it's kind of like Back to the Future. You kind of look back and you're stuck in a different world. Looking back on your past as if it was a previous life, which it was, it doesn't exist anymore. So, it's a weird feeling. It's a very strange feeling. Anyway, I better end it here. I've been rambling long enough. So, let me know if you feel the same way, if you've had this sort of similar experience or feeling. Alright, hope you guys are doing well. Talk to you soon. Bye.